Okay, now we're ready to get started on the ever interesting Sir Francis Bacon. If you are interested in conspiracy theories at all, there are certainly plenty about Francis Bacon. So if you ever want to look him up if you're bored and you have the time and you want to look them up, Francis Bacon is an interesting character. Um, it is rumored that he wrote the plays for, or wrote some of the plays for Shakespeare, that he was gay, um, several. But take the time, you can go ahead and take a look at those. The thing that we need to be interested in with Sir Francis Bacon is this, is that he is a big mover on the issue of empirical evidence. And he is going to say that empiricism is going to rule the day, that there is no such thing as this dogma that we call rationalism. Well, rationalism means that we believe that truth is innate, that it's in each one of us. He's going to say that's not the case at all. Hobbes is going to take this a little bit further, and we'll see that in the second lecture. But technology is going to be a big thing for him. He's going to say technology is this: it's man's mastery over nature. Okay, so let's say that we do a study and we interview 2,000 college sophomores and we interview them on what kind of pizza they like, and then we base the general population on that. And this is just an inductive method. We take that small group and we expand it out to a bigger group, and this is how we naturally do our inductive studies now. So everything that you know about the scientific method is based on what Bacon was trying to get across. Um, Statisticians are going to say, those are problematic, but we'll work with those. Um, One of the things during Bacon's time is that it wasn't asking a lot, and you want to be very rigorous about this, because if you find one counterexample in philosophy, this can just ruin your day. Um, for for example, let's say that I say all crows are black. Well, if I find one crow that's an albino crow, which we know to be the case, that in every species there seems to be one albino, then I've just ruined the whole study or the argument. And this is one of the issues in your paper. If you say all, every, you need to back off that guard a little bit and say some, most of the time, in general. Otherwise, you're going to run the risk. Inductive reasoning is very interesting because what I do is I can't know every single case. And so if I can't know every single case, then I have to kind of work from the arena that I know enough, and I can make a pretty strong argument for that. Um, and I'm going to have to trade off at some point. It's kind of a pragmatic, as William James talked about, it's kind of a pragmatic knowledge. I kind of trade off currencies here. I use it as a check, and until that check bounces, then I can continue to use it. So I can use that truth until I find out that it's wrong, and then I'm going to have to change that. Um, a rationalist will say, why would I do that when I could say that I just know this emphatically? And there are certain things that we can know emphatically, especially in ethics. We're not going to work from the idea that in general this is true. We're going to say that there are certain things that across the board there's these overarching principles that seem to work out for the rest of the community, in issues of thriving and flourishing. So more on that later. Um, but the advancement of learning, for Bacon, this is one of the things that he's going to advance is these faculties of humans. And he's going to give us these divisions in our brains. And it looks different now than what Bacon was going to say. But Bacon is going to say there are 6 faculties of the mind. We have understanding, we have reason, we have imagination, we have memory. Memory is incredibly important at this point, because very few people have the money to pay for the books. They're expensive and they're rare. So you either have to be very good with your memory, or you have to have someone else who's very good with their memory, to remember everything that you've seen in books before, because you're not going to be able to keep those books and keep them on a shelf. Instead, you're going to have to store those things in your memory. And so memory was incredibly important. Erasmus says that whatever money he had, he bought books. Whatever was left over, he ate. And so his importance was that he would buy books. Um, Imagination is very important. Imagination is one of those things that a rationalist would say. Human beings are different from animals. Why are we different from animals? Well, one of the reasons that we're different from animals is that we have this ability to um, imagine something and then bring it forth. It's incredible. We imagine this building, we imagine a house, we imagine even mundane things, changing your house around or a room in your house. And then we would say that the ability to bring that about is because of your imagination. It's very, very incredible. Your will has to do with your determination, your appetite, and he's going to say the appetite is to gain, it's the desire to learn, it's the desire to gain knowledge. Um, he's going to say, and this is kind of his idea, is that he induced that the duty and office of rhetoric is the ability to apply reason to the imagination for the better moving of the will. And so think about this. You have logic, you have well-reasoned arguments, and what you're trying to do in all of those, think about when you watch television, when you watch commercials. The idea is that they are inspiring the imagination of the reader, and the goal is to move the will of the listener and the will of the reader. Okay? So he is going to say that basically any time that you're using rhetoric, any time that you're talking about language, you are really trying to persuade somebody of something. You're trying to move their will. And I think that's really true. I think that we take for granted that whatever we say is something that will move other people to action. Commercials know that very, very well. I think that we're less aware of that. Epicurus, way, way, way back when, really believed that advertisement was a terrible thing because he said that it made people want things that they couldn't have, and his whole idea was of moderation. And I know that we look at Epicureans and we say that Epicureans believe that you should eat, drink, and be merry. That's not what Epicurus was about. Epicurus was about this idea that that you should be moderate, that the good things in life are really easy to get. So if you're out there wanting a Lexus and a big fancy house, he's going to say, what can you really afford? And if you really get your desires in line with nature and get your desires in line with what you can really afford, then you're not going to have to stress over it. You're not going to have as much anxiety, because his whole goal was to get rid of anxiety. So the idea is that logic, rhetoric, those things are used to move your will. Okay? One of the things, though, that he believes very strongly is that language is an impediment to reality. It's an impediment to our understanding of reality. So language holds us back from true understanding. Really take that in for a second. I think that's really true. I think that there are certain things that we can convey with language, and I don't think a rationalist would have a difficult time accepting this statement. Plato really felt like to convey things from the soul is really incredibly difficult. When you talk about why you love somebody, what do you come up with? How can you convey that linguistically? It's incredibly difficult. And that was his point, is that language is going to hold us back from true understanding. It's not going to convey that. This is really going to lead us into issues of philosophy of mind. So I want you to think for a second, and I want you to tell me if you like steak. I want you to think about steak, and now I want you to tell me how it tastes. Yeah, really, really hard. You can tell me it's salty, it's juicy, but you're going to miss the point of the whole thing, and that's Bacon's idea, that you're just going to miss it. And this is the idea of philosophy of mind, is that we miss a lot that's going on between human beings. Tolstoy talks about a conversation between this woman that he had a crush on in one of his short stories, and he was saying that they were having this whole conversation between each other. And I'm sure that many of you have felt that you've had a conversation with somebody without actually saying something, and this gives credence to that idea that language is kind of runs amok in trying to explain that. So let me go on in part 2 with Bacon, okay?